computer here. There. We'll call to order the Winona County Community Health Board. Item number 2, approval of the minutes from October 24th.
I'll move to approve those minutes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bagley, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the meeting minutes of October 24th. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Chairperson's report. The SHAC group has been meeting. Unfortunately, their last executive meeting was in conflict with my MCIT board meeting, but I know they're working on clarifying the funds that the legislature gave them, how they're going to, I don't know if the right word is reinvent public health, but recharge it. I had the opportunity last week to have a very interesting Zoom with 2 young people that were out on the East Coast. They're trying to do some interviewing of people that have been involved in public health and where this is all going. And of course, you're talking to people that are in the communications world. They don't know the health world. So it was I felt I maybe gave them a little different insight to what they were looking for than what they had. And they were sitting in Washington, D.C. And I said it was and it happened to be a beautiful day. And, and neither one had ever been to Minnesota. So I said, come, spend, and then go home. Be tourists. But I know they're working on a lot of different things, and there is an upcoming SHAC meeting in December right after the AMC meeting that more things will be discussed and more opportunities to partake. And I am encouraged to see some movement on well testing and reverse. Now I'm also seeing the option of reverse osmosis being thrown into the conversation. So that's a public health issue, our water supply. So it's encouraging. Anything else?
Wait, would share the so the Winona, Mississippi Look Crescent 1 Watershed 1 Plan Policy Committee met yesterday morning, and Emily Zanon, who is she works for the MPCA out of the Rochester office, was talking about the watershed had they do a 10-year reporting process on the quality of the water. It's called RAPS. And right now I couldn't tell you what RAPS is an acronym for something, but it's going to come out again in 2026. And there were 3 items that she said they're doing in preparation as a part of the update of that report. And one of them related to well testing. They had picked a couple of counties in the western part of Winona, and they were going to try and identify wells that had been drilled before the well code went into place in Minnesota in 1975, so that they could find wells that are not on the index, the Minnesota well index, and then potentially they would be able to offer them services in terms of testing and mitigation and such. So,
yeah, the well code is critical in the analysis.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving into item 4, consent business. 4.1, approved purchase agreement with Lab Rep Company for ultra low temperature freezer for vaccine storage. Melanie, I think you're here. I thought we had a freezer when COVID came. Is this something different? I thought we had storage capacity.
So we don't have an ultra low vaccine freezer. Currently, Gunderson Health System in Winona is storing our COVID-19 vaccine stock. And since we have the COVID-19 vaccine grant, we thought this would be an opportunity to purchase an ultra low vaccine freezer to store our own COVID-19 vaccine internally.
And how much vaccine do we have that we need to store?
For that question, I would invite Betsy Zeller to the microphone.
Okay.
So it's actually stored at Gunderson. They've been a good partner for us, and it's been convenient to work with them. I just want to explain a little bit about the vaccine. So when it was privatized, we had to start getting our vaccine from the Minnesota Vaccine for Children and the uninsured and underinsured adult vaccine. So we need to be good stewards of it. Because of the ultra cold storage, once you take it out of that ultra cold storage, it's only good for 10 weeks. So if it stays in the ultra cold storage, it's good probably for the year until its expiration date. So I have been getting one vial at a time, so we're not taking a whole box out, but it's inconvenient running back and forth. I have about 100 doses of children's vaccine and 50 doses of adults.
But is it a want or is it a need?
Well, I would,
It's like a want. It would make it more convenient. I mean, can we spend the $8,000? I mean, wasn't it $8,000?
well, this will be ongoing, and I don't know how long Gunderson will want to keep doing this. They also have to keep records for us on it. I mean, that's a lot to keep asking them.
They benefit from us. I mean, there's mutual benefit, mutual aid. Okay, that was the questions I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to treat them individually or do you want,
We can, either way, I prefer individually, I guess,
I'll
so.
move to approve, okay, in that case, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I move to approve item 4.1.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Vagley, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve 4.1. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I'm just wondering, with freezies, can you put freezies in there and get them super, that's a hot item in
Might
my
be
house.
too
in the
cold for
summer.
your lips.
Yeah, okay, but, okay. 4.2, approve PH Doc Health Maintenance and Support Agreement. Melanie, I got a question. Anybody else have any? I have a question. Is that all paid through by the state? It was referenced two different, I'm assuming they were grants or something. It's $28,000. It's for computer software to do the job. I mean,
Yep.
but is it paid by the state or is that out of local levy?
So what this is for our electronic health record, which we're required to have a documentation system.
Right.
And it is funded by two sources. So 55% of it's funded by the maternal child health unit, and then 45% of it's covered by the over 65 team. Some of that may be reimbursable for the over 65 team through Blue Cross Blue Shield if we have more reimbursement versus the work. But yes, some of it, to answer your question, yes, some of it's coming out of the levy.
Some of it's levy, some of it's local. Okay. Well, I have an angst that counties keep having to spend, it's $28,000. Some of it's reimbursable, that, it's a basic service that the state's telling us we need to provide, yet there is not sufficient funding. I mean, I don't know for sure why it should be local levy. That's my angst. It should be covered. If they want us to do the job, they should pay for it. I mean, nobody else wants to work without getting paid, but county governments do it all the time. But it's a necessary evil. Okay, all right, thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other discussion or questions?
I would move to approve item 4.2, approve PH Doc Health Maintenance and
Second.
Support Agreement.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve 4.2, the PH Doc Health Maintenance and Support Agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. General business. What's the outlook for health? Melanie, back, you shouldn't go sit down. Are you getting your step? We got some time. One of the things that I will miss greatly is Dr. Adine. I mean, he's retired and he's still partaking in our public health, but he always had kind of a health tip of the month when he came to our meetings. You should do this, you shouldn't do this, stuff like that. So I'm putting you on the spot. Is there a health tip for all of us for the holiday season and everything?
Yes, well, the holiday season also aligns with flu season. So I would encourage hand hygiene, staying up to date on your influenza vaccine, and there is an updated COVID-19 vaccine for those who choose to participate.
How about RSV?
RSV, there is a new, two new vaccines out on the market. MDH is thinking that RSV will be increased this year compared to previous years. So it is recommended if you have that virus impacts children. So if you think your child is at risk, to definitely seek that treatment out at your primary care provider.
Okay. Anybody else got any? So wash your hands, Don't, do, what, the kids, they do,
Knuckles.
yeah, knuckles and such, but just, yeah, be cognizant of what's going on around you.
Correct.
All right. Okay, any other business for the health board? Then.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Melly.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bagley, second by Commissioner Meyer to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. All right, thank you.
Morning, everyone. Welcome.
Morning.
We start our meetings at the Winona County Board with public comment. And so if there's anyone in the audience that has some thoughts that they would like to share with us, I would invite you to come to the podium. Please introduce yourself, tell us your name and address for the record. And we do set aside a certain amount of time, so please limit your comments to 2 minutes. I will ask several times, don't be shy. Is there anyone here in the audience? And for those folks, and there's not many today, but who are participating over Ring Central on the internet, you are also able to participate. I would encourage you to unmute yourself and say something to get our attention. So if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak in public comment, please do so now. And for the final time, if there's anyone here in the audience or on the internet that would like to participate in public comment, please step forward now. Hearing no one, public comment is closed. Our next item of business involves approval of some minutes. Commissioner Bagley.
I'll move to approve the October 24th County Board minutes. Second.
Okay. Commissioner Vegley has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the county board minutes from October 24th of 23. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And if anyone's opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have some committee minutes that we need approval.
I'll move to acknowledge 5.1, which is the Whitewater Joint Powers Board, August 15th, 5.2, Board of Adjustment, September 21, and 5.3, the Planning Commission, September 21.
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved approval and Commissioner Vegley has seconded of the 3 minutes noted in our packet and agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. If anyone is opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Next item is consent comments and approval of the agenda. Commissioner Ward.
I would like to, for a little more discussion, pull items 7.13 and 7.22. And then just when we get to them, just a brief comment about, let's see, 7.4 through 7.12. Just a comment about this. We don't need to pull
Okay, so-
those, just when
Right.
an administrator reads them before we approve them. I'd like
Okay.
to make a comment.
So we're going to pull, there'll be some comments on the outside agency funding, 7.4 through 7.12. 7.13, we're going to pull it.
That I would like a separate just discussion on, please.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and make it 8.11 and put it after the presentation. And just a heads up that Ms. Baranik has sent us a message. She is not, she's had an emergency. She's not going to be able to make it today. So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and move these after that, since that presentation, we'll need to make a decision on perhaps rescheduling it. Okay, so 7.13 is going to be 8.11 and 7.22 is going to be 8.12. So maybe 8.2 and 8.3 instead, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Vegley.
2 comments at the end, please.
Okay, and I have nothing. So there are some adjustments to our agenda, yes.
We should-
Oh, yes, okay. Administrator Holte, did you have anything to add, to change?
I would like
Oh.
I would like to make an announcement at the end, if I could, please.
Attorney Sonneman, do you have anything to change on the agenda? And
I
welcome.
did, thank you. Sorry for being late.
No, you're right on time.
Oh,
I did review it last night. I don't have any updates or,
Okay, terrific. All right, so there are some adjustments to the agenda, but if the board is ready to move forward, a motion to approve the adjusted agenda would be in order.
So moved. I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Olson has moved, Commissioner Vagley has seconded the agenda as it was modified. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Administrator Holte, could you read for us the consent agenda as it remains?
Absolutely. 7.1, approve interim use permit for Thomas and Janet Campbell. 7.2, approve advertisement for 2024 official newspaper. 7.3, approve county board chair recommendation for Human Rights Commission applicant. There is a comment for 7.4 to 7.12. Commissioner Ward, do you desire to make comment?
Go ahead and read them and then,
Okay. 7.4, approve outside agency funding agreement for 40 and 8. 7.5, approve outside agency funding agreement for American Legion Post 9. 7.6, approve outside agency funding agreement for American Legion 90. 7.7, approve outside agency funding agreement for American Legion 190. 7.8, approve outside agency funding agreement for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. 7.9, approve outside agency funding agreement with the Sons of the American Legion Squadron 9. 7.10, approve outside agency funding agreement with Sons of the American Legion Squadron 90. 7.11, approve outside agency funding agreement with VFW Post 1287. 7.12, approve outside agency funding agreement with VFW Post 5630. Commissioner Ward, do you desire to make comment?
yeah, this, just so the audience knows and people know that it was a change in our policy that put these organizations in, quote, the outside agency. We totally support the veterans. I'm very proud. My father was a veteran and he was a leader of his local group and he always wore that hat with great pride. So it's important we recognize these, but it was a change in our policy that puts them, and it gives some attention to this, which I think is well deserved. And again, we greatly support the veterans. Thank you.
7.13 was pulled. 7.14, approved purchase agreement with Lab Repco for ultra-low temperature freezer for vaccine storage. 7.15, approved Minnesota Department Human Services grant contract for children's mental health screening. 7.16, approved purchase of service and business associate agreements with Lewiston Altura Public Schools, District 857 for transportation of children and youth and foster care placement. 7.17, approve renewal of purchase contract and business associate agreement with Driftless Region Vector Control LLC for mosquito abatement services. 7.18, approve renewal of purchase of service and business associate agreements with Safety Gale Consulting LLC for training services. 7.19, approve master service agreement with Language Line Services Incorporated for interpreter and translation services. 7.20, approve agreement with the venue and Minnesota CCC for MA or PH doc maintenance and support. 7.21, approve contract extension with Harder's for county facility solid waste collection. 7.22 was pulled. 7.23, approve fee waiver for disposal of vaping materials generated from school district seizures. 7.24, approve 2024 to 2025 county feedlot program delegation agreement work plan. 7.25, approve 2024 to 2025 natural resources block agreement. 7.26, authorize disposal of excess equipment. And 7.27, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you.
That was a mouthful.
It was a lot.
I'll move to approve the consent items. Second.
Okay, Commissioner Vagley's moved, Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the consent business as it was read. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Under item 8.1 of general business, we were to receive a presentation from Ms. Buffy Baranik, the director of SEMCRA, discussing the local housing trust fund and determining the potential creation of that trust fund. And she has had an emergency and could not come today. But I'm wondering, can we try to schedule her for our next meeting?
Yeah.
How does the board feel about this?
Sure.
I think it's, yeah, it's important to reschedule it.
Lou, actually, before you go, could we review, when is the report from the housing study due? I apologize. I should have given you a heads up.
We are expecting a complete draft by the end of the week.
Okay.
Probably have a steering committee meeting in December.
Okay.
Have some time for review in between now and then. And then January, I'm thinking realistically, EDA meeting, presentation, and then to county board.
Thank you. Perfect. That was all my questions if we had discussed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would invite is Administrator Holte, if she has thoughts on. Ms. Baranik asked for 50,000, which we can easily meet with money that Minnesota, the state of Minnesota has given us for housing, but we have other funds and we could put all of the funds into a housing trust fund and then make, we could reserve the 50,000 for greater
Mhm.
Winona, but have funds for the city as
Yep.
well, if there were organizations in the city. So I'd kind of like to have a broader conversation
Absolutely.
when we do this.
And ideally, this isn't really a the cart before the horse, but ideally we would have had the housing study report first and then this discussion, but that's just not possible. So I'm interested to see what the options are.
And I always have angst. I know there was a couple requests earlier this fall for SEMCRA to help the city of Winona do some things. And city of Winona does not pay for the administrative overhead of running that organization. So the housing study is a total county.
Yep.
That is
Right.
absolutely right, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, again, if there needs to be some balance.
Absolutely.
Okay. So reschedule.
Okay, so do
Yeah.
we need a motion for this or can we just
No, just-
consensus?
Okay.
All right, so we're moving on from item 8.1 to 8.2, which was previously 7.13, approve contract extension with a venue through Minnesota CCC.
Yes, and I had a couple questions after looking late last night. We've used MCCC for a long time, but it seems like looking at this, if we go down in counties, our cost jumps up considerably. So is there a desire, John, in that we're going away from MCCC and is this, because we're talking about what, Tyler? Do I have the right name?
Correct. Yes, Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler.
Just for the record, Mr. John Conway, who is
yeah.
the county.
John Conway, the Winona County Assessor.
Has
Yeah.
stepped to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So what's going on here? Are we totally phasing out of MCCC and going to Tyler? And I know there needs to be a transition focus.
Correct. So first off, there wasn't a whole lot of, obviously Avenue they're going to stop supporting our CAMA and tax system.
Right.
So obviously we had to get a new system. Obviously it's been worked on for at least 10 years now and we're kind of running out of choices. So on the advisement of the attorney's office, going through Tyler with MNCCC was the better option than going just with Tyler by ourselves. So that was, and yeah, the cost is going to be more. It's like I said, no matter what, whatever company we're going to go to, you're going to be paying a lot anyway.
So are other counties using Tyler?
Yes, there is, out of the 87 counties, I want to say about 30 of them is with Tyler. Right now, about 20 of them right now are trying to switch to Tyler right now. We're just in line right now. Our conversion is going to be starting very soon. In fact, I should be talking with someone from Tyler this week to discuss when we start converting things over. It's going to be sometime next year, and we should be done with Avenue at the end of next year for sure.
Okay. And so is there an organizational group for those 30 plus counties? Are we negotiating as 30 counties or are we negotiating as one county?
Yep, good question. Yep, with the 30 counties, we're all in it together. There's
Okay.
monthly meetings. In fact, there's one at the end of this month I'll be at in St. Paul. It goes over what's going right, what's going wrong, because obviously computer conversions are not easy whatsoever, especially in this case. So yeah, so we meet regularly. We just, like I said, discuss what's right, what's wrong, how can we improve things.
Okay, all right, because yeah, you can't possibly find all the glitches and somebody else can find a glitch and we can get it fixed before it
Well,
becomes.
the good news is Tyler's been converting for the last couple of years now, and their conversion is getting better and better. So hopefully when it gets to us, hopefully our conversion, hopefully, knock on wood, will be a little, hopefully better
Yeah.
and more
We
smooth.
don't need to be the guinea pigs and we don't need to play with their system. Somebody else.
We're definitely not the guinea pigs. Just hearing other counties and their horror stories. I think we're in Fillmore County, they converted to Tyler last year. And there are some glitches, but I think if anything, it's going to improve.
And a glitch wouldn't include lower property taxes, would it?
No, that part I can't answer.
I'll go for that glitch.
Only in no time.
Yeah, and no, then go down. Okay, all right. Well, I was a little, I knew we were making this transition, so thank you for the information. Appreciate
Yep.
your being there, and I know you'll be a good watchdog of the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. With that, I'll move to approve the contract.
Okay. Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded. Item 8.2, approve contract extension with a venue through Minnesota CCC. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Item 8.
And here's a prime example of who do we collect the property taxes for? The state of Minnesota and ourselves, but they don't fund the mechanism to do that collection. Thank you.
Next item is 8.3, approve the purchase of 4 squads and 1 transport vehicle in 2024 budget. Commissioner Ward, you pulled
Yeah,
this?
let me get the 229.
Yep.
I guess, do we have, I'll relate to the highway where we're trying to replace on a regular basis. Is this within our plan to replace this many at this time?
Correct. And
Okay.
Mr. Liffey and the sheriff are here if you have clarifying questions.
Well, and so one of the things too, any policy, we've been using enterprise, any policy, and I've been at a few Association of Minnesota counties where some counties aren't real, and I didn't get any clarity what the issue was, but they weren't real happy with what was going on with enterprise is what I gathered. So I think anytime we've been using a policy or a company or anything, it deserves review. And then I was a little confused. Are we leasing these? Let me get to the page.
Page 229.
229, yeah.
Is it 229? Okay.
Yep,
Are we actually leasing them or are we buying them? And then we got to stick 20+ thousand in to get the bells, the computers and everything hooked into them.
We have,
And then,
we've been leasing since
Yeah.
Ken Fritz first came here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Step to the microphone.
yeah, we've been leasing for a number of years now. Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So our capital outlay then is the lease payment?
there's the lease, yes, the lease payment, but of course, then to outfit each squad to tear down the old squads and take the equipment out and the graphics off and that kind of thing.
Okay. And shouldn't this have been part of the capital improvement plan versus a line item budget? I'll ask Ms. Holte that. I mean, this is what, like the highway, we use it as a capital improvement plan. And this seems to be, it's thrown in our budget. But is that line item, is that always in our budget? Are we doing 4 every year? Or
I need to
what's our
defer to
rotation?
Mr. Moga
It-
as to that
it all de-
every year rotation.
Yeah, it depends each year how many we need. Like, if we stay on schedule, we would potentially need 5 next year, at least 4, but potentially 5. And, it's anywhere between 3 and 5, I would say, since I took over as sheriff. And we rotate through. It's mostly based on mileage, but, we go with Mr. Lafee's recommendation and Enterprise's recommendation and looking at the mileage on the cars, the year of the car, and that kind of thing. So yeah, we're rotating our cars through each year.
Okay.
And with the lease, we actually get rid of them a little sooner than we used to, but that's because then they still have a value.
Okay. Well, I think, like I said, I think we should just review the ins and outs of what and there was a comment here that, you know, the window for ordering, it was odd that I heard a ad over the car industry, the supply chain changes dramatically. This happened to be a Honda ad. They were advertising that you could go to the lot and you could buy your vehicle and drive it home because now they have inventory. A few short months ago, they did not have inventory. You had to order your vehicle. So it changes rapidly.
And it depends on which company you're talking about.
yeah.
Also, we get the Durangos, which is for the police fleets or the police vehicles, that's the cheapest model that you get out there. You know, when I used to be on patrol, we always had Fords. It was the thing. And then it kind of went to Chevy for a little bit. Now it's to the Dodges.
All right.
Commissioner Ward, can we let Mr. DeHolte answer one of your
Yes.
questions?
I just was wondering if Mr. Moga could clarify my understanding of how purchasing of the vehicles moved from the capital area of the budget to the individual department budget is because we've already established a contract or a purchase agreement. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Mr. Moga?
I'm gonna go back probably about 5-6 years ago. That change was made, that it went from the capital budget actually into the budget that actually is paying for that. So we have cars in actually the sheriff's budget. We have many.
Okay. Is it just a matter of where you put it? Are there any advantages or disadvantages to have it separate or?
I don't think there's any advantages one way or the other.
Okay.
It's just it was a change of philosophy a few years back.
Okay, all right. And then I have some angst, you know, the state government gave us $837,561 for public safety. Should we not have used some of that money for this? I know it was one-time money, but it's a matter of want and need. I mean, do we need squad cars? I mean, I don't think we want them. We need them. But I remember the public safety money, I think there was a lot, in my opinion, there was a bunch of wants on there, not needs. So have we spent that public safety money or can we change some of that to squad cars?
We actually have accounted for the whole public safety dollars. We actually have committed already to about 183,000 for Central Square. And then we have, and that actually is committed because there's a contract. And then the remaining, we have items that are, and I don't have the complete list right in front of me, but I think there's a microwave link, of SOAR vehicle. There was one other vehicle. wasn't there?
ERT?
A dive vehicle, and did I say the microwave link?
Yes.
There was one more.
I just remember there were a number of vehicles there and everything. And so I guess I would ask both the sheriff and the administration to relook at the best use of these dollars. You know, again, is it a want or a need or how we prioritize our spending?
Commissioner Bagley?
Did you want to finish that line of thought or?
Are you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and this is maybe for Mr. Moga, in terms of the agenda on page 229, I had the same question. I ran it by Ms. Holteam and Sheriff Ganrud. So there's a vehicle cost column, there's a monthly lease, vehicle outfitting. So we're not, just to double check, we're not purchasing the vehicles, we're leasing the vehicles.
We're leasing the vehicles, but we're paying for the, like the
Change.
additional equipment.
Yes. So we're paying for the vehicle outfitting.
It's about 102,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 5 total vehicles, right?
Well, no, it's supposed to be 4.
Five.
Three and
It's
one.
5. There's a transport vehicle.
Oh, the transfer, you're right, you're right.
Commissioner Bailey.
Can't we get an old school bus for transport? You see on the movies, they always drive them around in old school buses. Put
So-
chains and bars on the windows.
So later on, you can tell me what the total cost is. I'm doing the math in my head, except later on, I can double check with you in terms of, okay, 320,000, okay. And these vehicles last roughly how long? I know they're leases, so it's how long have the leases been utilized?
Hi, Aaron Murphy. The ones that we are trading out are we're gonna do a rotation.
Mhm.
So the ones that we're selling we're replacing will actually turn to a spare, but the spares that we have are 2013s and 14s.
Mhm.
So the ones that we actually are lined up are 2015, 2017 squad that will get moved to a spare.
How many miles are on those?
136,000 on one of them, 115,000 on another.
Oh, they're new and they're low mileage in my category. I drove to town today in a 2005 that has 207,000 miles on it.
And the squad,
Squad cars out on patrol.
Oh, you don't know where and how I drive, Ron.
They average about 30,000 a year, and even if when the window was open to order these, they don't even get delivered to the outfitter for 9 months. That's how long it takes for them to get them. Then at the outfitter, it's another 2 or 3 months. So we won't even, if we ordered them tomorrow, we won't even see them for almost a year, which would be, you know, you do the 136, you're almost adding another 30,000 on that for normal patrol.
But are you locked in on price?
Once we order them, we'll be locked in
On
on
price?
Commissioner Bagley?
The window to open it is usually the dealer will let us know, and we have like 1 week window, and once that allotment is full, we're done and we have to wait till next year.
One of the questions I didn't ask ahead of time was, this is, can you, and you can, if you don't know, we can follow up afterwards. How many total, I realize there's different kinds of vehicles and the jail also has vehicles. How many total vehicles are there in the law enforcement fleet? Would you ballpark?
There's 25 squads that we have, and those are the deputies.
Mhm.
And for the jail transport, we currently have 4, but we're going to reduce that fleet down to 3.
Okay.
Because we have the new jail, but there still will be transports for juvenile, civil, medical, warrants. So there's still going to be transports, but hopefully not as much. So we're going to reduce that fleet down to 3.
Or maybe even reduce it more over time. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I'll move to approve item, what was 7.22.
Second.
Commissioner Bagley has moved. Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the purchase of 4 squads and 1 transport vehicle in the 2024 budget. Is there further discussion?
I'll support it at this time, but I do think we need to look at our options as far as, is leasing still the best for us? I don't know that. And then again, if we can use any of this public safety money for that purchase, I would greatly appreciate it.
But this way we can at least go ahead and make the order.
Right.
And we are looking into the enterprise. What is the county's best option? Do we go back to the county buying them outright and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Pat and myself just had a meeting with the finance director at Enterprise to
Okay.
get some more info so we can kind of complete the study.
Okay, good.
Thank you for doing that.
Appreciate that. Any contract that we have for more than a couple of years, I think needs us to scrutinize because sometimes you get taken advantage of.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of item 8.3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
I am delighted to see Ms. Buffy Brannick in the audience now. So she
Oh.
has, she's made it.
No, we rescheduled you. Go home.
Has the board wish to go ahead with the presentation?
Absolutely.
No, go home. You rescheduled you.
Thank you for having Superior Public Safety. Had great response. It was an accident prior to coming here. So, anyhow.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm okay. And-
Hopefully, were you on the Wabasha side of the line or?
God, I was on the
Anyone
left
else?
side, so
Okay.
Thank you for investing in your public safety. Wonderful public safety staff out there,
Good. That's good to hear.
active and retired. So anyhow, we are here to talk about housing trust funds today. Today is a discussion. Not looking for a decision, maybe some guidance on next. It's an opportunity and maybe a prelude to our upcoming levy request in December. So trying to gain understanding of housing trust funds in that option B of our levy request. And part of this discussion is to provide you with options that are out there. So I'm sure it doesn't have to be the one-stop shop. It can be. And again, just a reminder with our levy request, the request to set up the Housing Trust Fund was in response to the $1.3 billion available at the state and utilizing the funds in the Housing Trust Fund to leverage. It's a economical, it's a way that we can staff that and be able to go after those dollars. So I'll just start with just basically what is a housing trust fund. Perfect. But in just very simple terms, it's the government saving money in a fund. Just very, very simple terms. So housing trust funds, local housing trust funds are established by an elected government, city, county, regional level. They dedicate public revenues. Ideally, they're reoccurring public revenues that address housing needs. So I think of it in just, in old school terms of a restricted fund. So, but it's the, with housing, funds, there's money and funds available at the state, where the state will match that. So that is a benefit to having a local housing trust fund versus just a restricted fund. So what can a housing trust fund?
I think Heidi's actually doing both.
Okay, next slide, maybe, please. So what can a local housing trust fund do for you? As I said, Centra's request as part of the levy is to use that as leverage to go after the 1.3. They can do more if they are funded and staffed. And so what can they do? They can make grants, they can make loans, they can do loan guarantees for developments, rehab, they can help finance housing. You can utilize the Housing Trust Fund to match funds, both at a local, state, and from private resources. You can use them, and we have in other counties created a down payment assistance program where the money then revolves in. You can use them for rental assistance, home buyer education, counseling, and training. And out of the Housing Trust Fund, you are allowed to spend up to 10% of those funds to administer the programs within there. It's not the I'm going to be very clear here and very transparent. It's not the administration of the Housing Trust Fund, the setting up. It's the administration of the programs from within that you can use. You can use, so how do you staff some of the different programs? The 10% will, depending on how complex you make the Housing Trust Fund and the different programs, that 10% will help pay for program expenses. If you want them to be elaborate, then you may have to find other funding sources to match with that. Could be HRA levy, could be other outside sources. Next slide, please. Next, oh, thank you. Benefits. They're dedicated funds. They can't be, again, thinking in terms of like restricted funds, they can't be reallocated to another use. And I'll just talk a little bit about the levy. One of the things we talked about in Goodhue County, who has a housing trust fund component and also salary dollars to go after the grant writing, we talked about putting the grant writing monies into the Housing Trust Fund too, so that they are restricted just for that. So just a sidebar, when we talk about levy, that may be something that Winona County would want to do too. Again, it restricts it, it's just accountability, predictable. The reason why you want to have a reoccurring funding source fund in there is so that you can plan. Do you want to plan for a larger housing development? Do you want to have down payment assistance program that would happen every year? So you want that predictability built in there. What we've seen in the past with housing trust funds, on average, when $1 goes in, $6 are leverage. So it allows us that ability to bring in other funds other than just one single source. Why do we like housing trust funds? Because they're flexible. They meet the needs at the local level. We can design these how it fits best for us at the local level. It's not a program that's developed up in the cities and then extrapolated out. We develop it here. We develop those programs. And it, again, it just promotes housing overall as a priority within the local level. Slide, please, Heidi. To establish a local housing trust fund. It's very short. It's one page. It's very simple. And even I don't feel like I have to call my attorney to get an opinion on how to do this. They're established by a local government ordinance. You can just pull up state statute 462, C.16, and it's very simple to read. So you're creating that local housing trust fund. It's established by a local government. You're doing that through an ordinance. Within that ordinance, you're identifying your funding sources, the regular funding streams that would go in there. And I'll talk a little bit about that more on the next slide. And you identify an administrator who's going to administer that housing trust fund for you. So there's money going in, housing trust fund, and there's the administration of it. And that administrator is typically a government agency or a nonprofit organization. So funding sources. Next slide, please. Local housing trust funds sources are they're limited. HRA levies are typical. Probably the most familiar that I am is the HRA levy. Bond proceeds can be used. Next slide, please, Heidi. Tax increment financing. If you have a tax increment financing district and in the TIF plan, you have it written so that any excess TIF will fund your housing trust fund, you can do it that way as well. Have to amend, if you have an existing TIF plan, you have to amend that TIF plan to include that now. Grants, loans from state, federal, or private sources, things that are rotating in. Appropriations from local government. That's like the LAHA, the local housing aid money, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment too. Loan repayments, donations, and this is a repeat from that. So that's new money that's coming into cities and counties. This is really what's added to the discussion of housing developments across the state is that LAHA money coming in at the city and county level, and what and how do we who should be administering those funds to make sure that they're going out to the best use and sources. And I believe counties and cities will receive that in December of 2023. Part of the reason I didn't want to recycle. Time is of the essence.
That's
This is something we want
That's
to do.
one-time funding.
The LAHA money comes in, it's my understanding it's not one-time money. It'll come in this year for 132,000, I believe, for the county of
Yeah.
Winona.
132,885. Yeah.
And next year as well. And then I believe it gets cut in half. I think it's about half.
I
but
think it was
it's in
2
regular.
years.
It's at least 2 at 132 according to Micah.
And then,
And then it's a reduced
because housing costs are going to dramatically reduce.
of course.
Yeah.
Um,
Price, we'll have a half price sale. Okay.
Next slide, please, and we'll talk about the administrator role. So when you select an administrator, that administrator will establish programs with funded capacity. I talked a little bit about that in the past. Depending on how complex you want to make your housing trust fund, you have to fund that capacity to be able to run that housing trust fund. They develop program documents. So, for example, we have a very successful down payment assistance program in Goodhue County that we run through a housing trust fund. We maintain those documents. We update those documents as industry standards change. We have a rural rehab program that we run in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. It's like a small cities, but it's for the rural.
Is that in Goodhue also?
That's in Goodhue also.
Thank you. Thank you. We also select and fund the projects. So that selection process, depending on how the Housing Trust Fund is set up, I'll use Goodhue as an example, projects over 25,000 come back. They don't only get HRA board approval, they get county board approval. So you're still involved in that process as much as you want to be. You don't have to be at that level, but that's how Goodhue is set up. They take fiscal responsibility for the fund. That means that we're responsible for managing those funds and making sure that they're accounted for, segregated, and whatnot. We oversee the fund operations to make sure that repayments are made on loans, et cetera. And we coordinate the required meetings for the committee. In Goodhue County, we meet twice a year or as needed, depending on programs and projects. And then you must create an annual report as well. And that's posted posted on the website.
Ms. Brannick, so when you say HRA approval, does like Red Wing have an HRA? Is it similar to how it works in Winona with Winona and the
Yeah,
county?
so Goodhue County is very similar to Winona County in the sense that, well, in the sense that the HRAs operate in the city of
Red Wing.
and out county. So but the significant difference is the city of Red Wing fully funds their HRA at 100%. They have a housing trust fund themselves, and then the HRA has a housing trust fund. So there's two separate housing trust funds, one with the city and then one with Semtra. The funds that flow in there are from our levy funds that flow into the Semtra and also into Red Wings, so that they match the jurisdiction of the HRAs. I'll jump to my very last bullet point. So this LAHA confuses stuff because it really, it depends at a county level how you want to handle that. For the city of Winona, it's pretty simple. It's going to stay in the city of Winona. City of Red Wing, it stays in the city City of Winona stays in Winona, and Red Wing with Red Wing. But the county level, the county can choose to put all of that in the city of Red Wing or the city of Winona, or all of it in Elk County. You have that choice. You don't. My understanding is you don't have to match that. And in Goodhue is one of the only LAHA recipients that I'm aware of that is choosing not to put it in a housing trust fund. They want the control of that. They believe the money was intended for development. They want to be able to go back to the legislature and say, we spent this money to develop this unit. Not sure how far, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of Red Wing. They looked at doing a development in the city of Red Wing, and they were going to put the LAHA money in there. And I fully, as Semtra, take the money, put it in the development. We need more affordable housing. If it swings the other way and that development doesn't happen and they decide to do a development in the city of Zumbrota, wonderful, great. So they aren't dividing that. So, but the money that flows into the housing trust fund for Goodhue County through Semtra is administered in Semtra's jurisdiction. So that is a choice with the LAHA money that you will have to decide what you want to do there. But in terms of, Heidi, next slide, please, in terms of next steps. So where do we go from here? If you decide that you want to set up a housing trust fund, regardless of if it's Semtra or it's city or however you want to do that, you need to determine who your administrator is going to be. And then that administrator would work with county staff to develop a committee, and they would develop the ordinance. The ordinance would get approved. Within that ordinance, you identify your funding sources, you identify the programs, and then you finally come back and you pass that ordinance. When I talk about identifying funding sources, there's, again, I'm going to just very, very transparent on this. There's two pieces to that. There's the administration of the Housing Trust Fund and the programs. And if that's Semtra, that's through our HRA levy. And if it's for funding it, it's how do you fund the Housing Trust Fund? From what source? Is that from HRA levy? Is it your LAHA money? So there's two pieces there. And then you identify the programs. And again, within those programs, depending on how complex you want to get, there's the funding of the programs as well, if the 10% of admin doesn't cover it from within. So last slide, please, Heidi. Options to consider. So I'll hit on some of the points that I was just talking about. I'll talk a little bit about HRA levy and kind of where the state of the nation is today. And then in December 12th, I believe it is, the HRA levy is back in front of you to consider. If Semtra is determined to be the housing trust administrator for Winona County, there are several things that we need to determine or consider. One is the cost to be incorporated as part of the HRA levy. We charge $4,500 to administer that housing trust fund. That's what it costs us. And I want to be, again, very, very transparent. Costs don't hold. costs typically don't go down. We've squeezed every ounce of energy and capacity out of Sumtra with holding the HRA levy at $100,000. Right now, we're at 100,000 hold. That was what was in front of it. You did approve an option B, which included housing trust fund and grant writing. I will come back with the proposal. Out of that housing trust fund money, I will propose that you use $4,500 for Sumtra to administer the housing trust fund, and the remainder of that, the $45,500, to go into the housing trust fund. Whether or not you decide to put LAHA money or HRA, that's your choice. So that is how I will present it back to you, holding the 100,000. But if you do that, the 4,500, there is an annual increase to that. My staff do get salary increases, just as yours do, and we need to adjust that annually. The service area for Sumtra does exclude the city of Winona. And I was thinking about this morning. What would it take for Sumtra to include the city of Winona? I think honestly, it would take an HRA levy. So it would take Sumtra levying within the city of Winona. That's what it would take. And I don't know where that goes or how that happens, but for us to operate outside of our jurisdiction, outside of a federal program, that,
No.
yeah.
It's a
So
slippery slope.
it's,
Yes.
yep. That's the only, we would have to levy, we would have to be paid. We did, kind of a sidebar too, we did talk about some other housing issues that are happening in nearby counties where Sumtra could have come in and helped. We have so much work to do in our jurisdiction. We, as a board and as an agency, elected not to get involved in some of that adjacent housing issues outside of our jurisdiction. So if the housing trust fund is funded with the HRA levy, it's really no issue. We'd administer it the exact same way we were administering the funds from Goodhue County, where it's out county. We're administering it programs in out county. If we use the LAHA money, I'm going to ask the county board either to say, we're giving it all to you, Sumtra, and you operate it all within your jurisdiction, or if you don't want to do that, you make the decision on this portion we're giving to Sumtra to operate in their jurisdiction. This amount we're going to give to the city housing trust fund for them to operate in their jurisdiction. I really don't want to get involved.
Didn't the city get some
Yes.
separate money?
They
They
did.
got their own money.
They
They're
got their
getting
own
more
because
than
of
we are.
size.
They're getting more than we are. They're getting 180, I think.
Okay.
Yep. And I already talked about that, the last bullet point there, the other option for LAHA. You don't have to put it in a housing trust fund. You can dedicate it to a specific organization. You can dedicate it to a specific project. That's up to you. It doesn't have to go into a housing trust fund. I would say if you were to look across the state, most people are putting it into a housing trust fund.
That was what they said at AMC. Many counties stood up and said that's what they're doing.
So with that, I will open it up to questions, comments, thoughts.
You mentioned it was in one of the slides, fiscal responsibility. So can you take this money and put it in interest-bearing accounts?
Yes.
All right. And a lot of all of this is all towards new development. What, is there a restriction for rehab of older homes, upgrading them?
So the LAHA money, they encourage new construction. That's what they'd like to see. They like to see the development. Are we restricted to only new construction? Absolutely not. And my comfort zone is preservation. And I would like to see us preserving as much housing as possible. If, and I'll one caveat to that, Habitat for Humanity is invested in St. Charles, and I know the cost of housing is not going down. I know the gap for getting individuals into those homes is wide. That's new construction. And if we can target the LAHA money as a down payment assistance program where it would rotate back through, That's an option. So that would be a new construction, getting people
Well, of
into
course, the
homes.
state wants new construction because it builds tax base.
Of course.
They don't want you to rehab an old house because they don't get enough money out of it and such. So that's their emphasis. But I see we have a lot of homes that probably need some fixing up
Absolutely.
to make them energy efficient and everything. So we could
Yeah.
play with
I
that
think there
concept.
could be a wonderful partnership with Habitat for Humanity in rural Winona County, doing rehab on those homes. We've got a program already set up, and I've had some preliminary discussions already with Habitat for Humanity. I think they would be more than open to looking at some of that as well.
Commissioner Begley?
A couple of slides back, it's in our agenda, it's page 264, Commissioner Ward, it does talk about rehabilitation as well. So I know you are right, usually the focus is on new development, but it does talk about rehabbing buildings as well.
It does. So housing trust funds, absolutely. Put the HRA levy in there, no problem. We could just do rehab. It's that LAHA piece of what do you feel you're obligated from the state to use that money for? Can you use it for preservation, rehab? Absolutely. Or do you want to be able to go back and say, we produced X number of homes, we contributed to a 32 unit development wherever. And again, affordable housing and funding for that affordable housing, whether it's in the city of Winona or Winona County, I don't have a bias on where that money is spent, as long as it's creating affordable housing.
So this is a question we can come back to in terms of like what's being asked and what are the next steps, because there's all kinds of carts and horse analogies here, but I wish that we could have had and Lou, I don't know if you were still in the room when I mentioned this. I think we should let the housing study drive some of our decisions on this in terms of what's needed, best uses. I have thoughts, I have opinions, but I defer to all the research being done on the large countywide studies. So I wish we could have that done, but what steps need to be taken and when, et cetera. And I know the city of Winona is not all of Winona County, but it's 2/3 of the city. I hope we could find some way for the city and county to partner. In Goodhue, so the city HRA levies separately from the county.
Red Wing.
In Red Wing.
Yeah, in Red Wing, but then you said that they have equal amounts. Is it combined then into one local housing
No.
trust fund?
No, they manage their own local housing trust fund. Sumter manages their own.
Oh, they have two.
We have two within Goodhue County, managed separately, different
Are
programs.
there any counties that can find a way to combine for some, not all, but for some things, or is it all or nothing?
Well, I just got an email yesterday saying, Buffy, have you ever done a multi-county housing trust fund? And I'm like, I just want to get my counties.
Let's get this one.
Let's just get
Oh,
one county.
I want to
So,
focus on Winona County
yeah,
and actually separate from the other counties and be Winona County focused.
Olmsted County has a huge demand.
Yes.
And a lot of money. Like 5 times as much.
Proportionally.
Yeah.
So we set the preliminary levy at 100,000 on, and then a one-time of 90. And that was to be divided 50,000 for the trust fund and 40,000 to fund a position. So we also said at that meeting that the state money, if it could be used rather than levy money, that would be the preference. And that's still my preference, right? So now we're getting more than 50,000. But just to clarify, it's my understanding from a conversation that I had with Administrator Holte that the money from the state that you've been calling LAHA, right?
Mhm.
That money, the 132,000 cannot be used to fund the position, the grant writing position.
Correct.
Right? So the money from the state, but it certainly can go towards the 50,000. At a minimum, I support making that available to use as to leverage applications at the state, right? Now, I want to know, and I would urge us, I mean, this is my thing. We find out what is the city planning to do with their 180,000, right? And in the spirit of partnership with the city, can we partner with them on something? They put their money and we put the rest of our, or is it in our best interest to go ahead and get a presentation and work out some kind of a agreement with Habitat for Humanity because they've been doing such a great job. But the thing that we need to decide between now and the end of the year, right, and our actual final levy is how we deal with the Semtra piece of it. But the rest of it could wait, I think, until next year or after the study is done or when the city is ready to have a conversation with, am I right?
I believe so. So I see this as there's a short term, there's an immediate, and then there's a long term. The housing study is driving the long term.
Yep.
And I 110% agree with you. That's what should drive our decision making. That should drive the decision on what programs we create long term. Short term, we have $1.3 billion sitting at the state. It's going to be there and it's going to be gone before you know it. The reason why we requested the Housing Trust Fund, some sure requested that, was to go after that. So that's the immediate. So if we can get the Housing Trust Fund set up, we can get it funded so that we can leverage and keep it very simple. We're only using it for leveraging. Doesn't mean that you can't go back in later and create a rural rehab program, down payment assistance program, loan programs, grant programs, rehab programs, development. You can do all of that, and it doesn't have to be all done right at the beginning. So if we stay focused on what is immediate, it's the 1.3 billion at the state that we want to go after. So,
But Buffy, that 1.3 billion, usually when the state puts out a carrot like that, there's strings.
Of course.
And then it's usually something that's off the shelf, they pull, they're ready to go with their project. Eats up a lot of that. Is that true with this? Or is there any rationale to evenly distribute this? 1.3 billion sounds like a lot, but I'm sorry, it's not in today's scale.
Not for housing and not all over the
No,
state. right?
yeah. If it was Winona County, yeah. But I mean, it's 87 counties in the huge metro area.
there are new programs that they're developing specifically for Greater Minnesota. So I think those are the carrots and the programs that we can go after now. They're new. Yep, you're exactly right. They are funding some of the existing programs. For those existing programs, we're going to go after those, and we're going to go after them with bigger requests because there's more money in the pots. So,
And what's rural Minnesota success stories? How many communities have tapped in and gotten significant? I mean, the state says that all the time. Governor Walz says one Minnesota. I don't believe it because it gets gobbled up in the metro area really fast.
there are success stories. I think there would be more if there was funding for going after the dollars. I think that's what holds Greater Minnesota back. We just simply don't have the staffing or the resources to go after it. Not just Winona County, across the board.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger outstate areas, they've got larger staff or they've got dedicated staff or consultants there. Absolutely, they're bringing in their success stories. So
Well, the other thing I would want to be sure, if we, there's a spreadsheet, I shared it with Commissioner Vagley, but it's part of the research that there's a subgroup at the CJCC called Hope for Homes, and they had put together for their participation in the Minnesota Housing Partnership information about a local housing trust fund. Okay, so that's all on the CJCC website. I shared that link with Commissioner Vagley. They have a spreadsheet in there that shows the counties in the state that have formed trust funds, and then they identified the uses, right? So if we created a trust fund and made Semtra the administrator and dedicated that fund money for this use in 2024, is it possible to go back and change the documents so that it can be for other programs
absolutely.
that you could use if it didn't come through, or what came through from the state applications was really not as good a deal as was hoped for, so that Sempra could in fact use it in future years to accomplish rehabilitation and other work that they want to achieve.
A contract with a deadline. If this isn't met in 2024, then we take the money and do something else.
Yeah.
More of a contract.
Make it available for, yeah, I mean, and is 50,000 enough, or would you like more?
50,000 to fund the housing trust fund is not a lot of money, but at least gives us some leverage for the grant writing. I'd love to see the HRA levy coming in there, and I'll tell you why I'd like to see a little bit more, because I'd like to be able to write $150,000 match for you to bring that money back. So at the state level, you can request funding for up to $150,000 for money that you've put in. So if you put your LAHA money in and you put your 50,000, we're at that 150,000. It would be really nice to get the match money from the state. But we have to get moving. We have to have the housing trust fund
But the
created.
match funding to do what? A stick and mortar building, or just run the organization? All
It's
the other programs?
preservation, loans, grants, new housing, whatever you want to do within a housing trust fund. The 150 isn't earmarked. It's to meet your local needs and the programs that it's one-time match money.
One time.
And even though, let's say, and I just devil's advocate, we know we should consider SEMCRA to be the administrator, but we should also consider some other options. So I'm not sure what those other options would be, if it's county staff or if it's Habitat or whoever, but please someone will give us some other options. But let's say that it's SEMCRA. But if we do a local housing trust fund, we can stay, even though it's SEMCRA, it'd be only Winona focused, right? So Winona
Yes.
levy dollars only for Winona.
Correct.
And everything that you said, Commissioner Meyer, I agree with, except I would like to keep the $50,000 levy, and also so the levy would be in addition to the 132,000, just to have a bigger pot of money to go after possibly a bigger pot. And it's not guaranteed.
We said earlier, though, if at that last meeting, if we got the 103, that we would use that, now you're advocating that plus?
Yeah, that is what he said.
That plus, in
Yeah, that
order-
But
is-
we can't go up on that levy. We've already said
We-
preliminarily 100.
But then there was the 50 and the 40. So my thought was to use the 50.
The conversation was to use what the state was going to give us to fund that, and plus. Now you're adding
I
on.
want to have more funds available to go after more state dollars that are not guaranteed. I understand that, but I want
That would
to
have to come out of
levy.
and
Yes.
you've already said a preliminary, so where are you going to
But
come up with?
the preliminary did include the 50 and the 40,
Yes.
correct?
190,000.
50 and 40 using, as I remember, we can go back, that would come out of this state
There was a
132.
preference for that, and we can review that. But and we're not deciding anything today. These are just discussions for later,
You're
but
going home with empty pockets.
today.
My understanding was that you approved 190,000 for the HRA levy. That means I am levying across the board on your property tax statement. It's coming through that line item. That's what an HRA levy is. I'm levying through that. It's not coming through LAHA. But we did have the discussion. Could we not give you the 50,000 to put in there, and we fund it with LAHA
Instead, yeah.
instead? Yes,
was
we
pro-
did have that conversation. But preliminary, we approved the HRA levy at 190,000. I'm going to go back, being totally transparent here. Because you funded us at $100,000, not $110,000, I don't have any money to administer a housing trust fund for you. So of that 50,000, I'm going to come back in and ask for $4,500 with an asterisk next to it that needs to increase every single year that we're administering the housing trust fund for you.
Yes.
Got it.
The reason being, I would like to use the levy dollars that we originally approved and use this just to have these are large dollar amounts to us, but in terms of housing projects. And like you said, especially when you take that what was it, billion?
Billion.
1.3 billion.
1.3 billion.
Half of it goes to the metro. That only leaves $700,000 for 80,
87,000.
whatever. That's not very much. So that's why I think we need to talk larger dollar amounts. So that's just and we're not deciding that today, but that's just my thought, is to access larger. And by HRA, you mean, it's just and I really want to have conversations with the city to make sure that if we're going to do this, that we can match, so we can go after bigger dollar amounts. Nothing's guaranteed, but to go after bigger dollar amounts.
Yeah. If we did, I'm really going from off the cuff here.
You're
So
making it up now.
we could write a joint grant or proposal to the state with city dollars and county dollars coming in, match from each pots of money to leverage. Absolutely. it would be advantageous for you to two things. One, with your $100,000, that continues to fund your small cities grant writing. You want to keep that. There's a return on investment of about $600,000 to rural Winona County. You want to keep that in there. So
Could you
that's
say that? Could you clarify that?
so within your 100,000 levy, there's the general fund,
Yes,
there's
okay,
your money
yes,
going on. There's a piece in there that you didn't fund.
Yes,
The,
that's right.
the other 10,000. The residual amount goes in there for preservation for small cities. There's a return on investment. We have a very high success rate at Semstra. When we apply for small cities program, the small cities deed programs, we get funded at $600,000. That keeps Semstra going. That keeps your rural properties, your small cities in Out County preserved. We're preserving housing. It's a very important program. So that's what's in your 100,000. When we cut that from 110 down to 100,000, the funding for the housing trust fund came out of there. That's what I'm saying. Out of that 50,000, so we got the 100,000. You're funding those programs. You're good to go. If we want to do the housing trust fund, when I come back, I'm going to say 45,500 levy dollars to go in and fund, 4,500 to administer the housing trust fund.
Not 45,000, 4,000.
4,500, yeah. 45,500 to go into for match money. The one other comment, the other reason why you would want to put your LAHA money in there, why wouldn't you go after the 150,000? Take your 180 from the city, put that in a housing trust fund there. They should be writing and they should be calling Semstra and asking for the grant that we're going to be writing for Goodhue County. And we're all applying for the $150,000. There's a reason why at the city level, you want to have a housing trust fund too.
So of the partners in Semstra, who has a housing trust fund? Goodhue. Winona does not. Dodge does not.
Dodge has one with Min Prairie.
Okay, not with Semstra.
Not with Semstra. We are sitting on their committee. So part of that process, creating the ordinance, you have a committee that meets. It's a housing trust fund committee. Semstra is sitting on that committee. We're not going through the administration of
And
all of
Min
that.
Prairie is what, another?
They're a
private-
multi-county, organization that addresses housing as one of their, and social services. It kind of brings everything into one
Okay.
hub.
And Goodhue uses Semstra.
Goodhue uses Semstra or the Red Wing HRA.
Winona does.
Winona does not have one that I'm aware of. Wabasha County has not formally approved the housing trust fund, but they have approved the $50,000 levy and to go into, or they're gonna use their LAHA money to go in, and then they're funding the grant writing at 20,000 is the preliminary levy, and then using their LAHA money. So it's Wabasha, Goodhue, and then Winona. Yep.
I will say that the group that's working, this Hope for Homes group that's working as a work group of the CJCC has created a fund that they're calling a flex fund that is at the Winona Community Foundation. And their project is to create supportive housing, which is housing for individuals that need other services. Yeah, that like come from Hiawatha Valley Mental Health or some other organization. And they got, I think, $10,000. They got a grant from the state, but they're going to do private fundraising and they're looking for other sources for funds. But that is not truly a housing trust fund.
A little off subject, but something that you should, I think, we have Winona State campus sitting here, and I've been told some of those dorms are not being used. I don't know that. Nobody's been able to answer that question for me. They're taxpayer-funded buildings. You talk about, the need for short-term or anything. I mean, if we got infrastructure here, why aren't we using it? I don't know. Again, are they sitting? Nobody's been able to answer that. Are they sitting empty? Yeah.
The ones over on the Bud Cotter
Well, that got bought.
On
Right?
campus,
on campus too?
they're just outdated, they're not the desirable.
They're not pretty anymore. Yeah. But if anybody needed a house and a bed and a door, they would work. I mean, a home, temporary. I mean, it bothers me to see infrastructure sitting in our community. We say there's need and we're not even considering using that.
Anyway,
Makes no sense to me.
I would like us to consider what ways we could partner with the city, and maybe that doesn't happen till next year.
Right.
And then as well, we're getting another allocation next year. If there's a partnership to be had with Habitat for Humanity, and we can explore that. And they got a new director and she's only been there, I don't know, I'm
Mhm.
meeting with her, I think for coffee later this week, but so she's
Yeah.
only recently gotten there, so.
So what do you need to know? Either you, Buffy, or the administration need to know from us for now, or is it just pure discussion right now?
Discussion at this point.
Correct.
Yep.
However, we will need a direction because again, time is of the essence. Buffy, do you have a timeline that you would need?
Well,
Response?
It's only November 13th.
Yeah.
Time flies.
We only
all
got
kinds of
three
time.
more meetings,
We had
yeah.
all kinds of time.
in December, when you say we are going to fund a housing trust fund, that to me is we are going to fund that. If you want to give us direction now to start formulating that, we could start some of that. I don't know if
I
that's
think
the
your
cart
plate's kind of full.
before
I
the
think,
horse.
I think your plate's full.
Yeah, so,
Madam Chair, sorry.
Attorney Sonoway.
Even though it's a, yes, one-page ordinance, or I'm sorry, ordinance statute, I'm looking at it, I've been looking at it while you've been talking, having not read it before. But it does talk about creating the local housing trust fund by ordinance or participating in a joint powers agreement to establish a regional housing trust fund, which I would imagine if we did do something with Winona, it would have to probably be that. At least I would kind of recommend that because we'd want some kind of agreement with them, a joint powers agreement to establish the kind of rules. But I just want to, I don't want to throw caution here, but when you start talking about putting things in place and the, wheels start rolling, don't forget about the lawyers, okay?
I don't
Because-
think that the idea is to form a joint one with the city of Winona at this time or in this year.
Well, I'm even talking about the ordinance.
Yeah.
The ordinance would
that's the
have to be
ordinance.
drafted.
Yeah. So if we
and-
did an ordinance, I would like the ordinance to match Semtra's service, or what did you call it
Our
again?
service, our jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction. Yeah, that's what I think.
But it would be jurisdiction within Winona County.
Yeah.
right? Not
Jurisdiction,
your
just our,
regional. right?
just I'm assuming that if Sumter's operating a housing trust fund, it excludes the city of
Right,
Winona.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
we would want to do that because we'd want to have a separate housing trust fund within the city. Doesn't mean we can't work together on projects or that you can't decide one year that you're putting your LAHA here or over there. Or you're giving it to a separate entity. You can always change where the LAHA is going.
I think the question is, does the city of Winona want to expand affordable housing? Right? If their HIA is not interested in doing any expansion,
Yep, then the
which might very
conversation
well be
ends.
true,
Yeah.
then we may want to take,
Short conversation.
yeah, that's right. And we may want to take all of the funds and either partner with Habitat for Humanity or just begin to use all that money to do housing in greater
Yep.
parts of the
Outside the
greater part
city,
of the county.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you said it might help to let you know to start working.
Yes.
I mean, again, we're not going to approve
We're
anything.
not going to approve anything, but we could at least start having those conversations. If it's highly probable that we will have a housing trust fund, then I think it would behoove us to start having those discussions. Just getting a meeting on Maureen's and my calendar and Pat's is going to take some time. If we wait until December 12th, we're out to January, but at least we can get a meeting now to start that discussion. Who's going to sit on the committee? Just that discussion. Who wants to sit on the committee? Here's what we've done in Goodhue County. Does Attorney Sonneman agree with that ordinance or,
Well, and I was just going to mention, if you have an ordinance already somewhere, I'd love to see it because why reinvent the wheel? So-
Absolutely.
And there are ordinances on that CJCC page.
So
Are there?
Well, I'm
Okay,
unclear now what
Under
we're
Hope for
talking
Homes.
for
I have
dollars,
that
because
here, yeah.
what else, this 132,885 coming from the state for 2 years. I'm unclear now. We're throwing that all into this housing plus 50? I thought the 132 was covering the 50 and we would hold the local levy to
Well, that's something we
100.
could discuss later.
And have a vote on, yeah.
Well, that's pretty
I
significant.
think
is,
you're right,
yeah.
it is.
I would, I may be the only one that feels this way. I want the 130 plus the levy at 50,000.
Well, I'm willing to give them the 130 to try it for 2 years, but I want to hold the local levy then on our local property tax statement to 100.
And that can be a separate vote, but is it a fair sense of the body that we support the general idea?
Yeah,
Wouldn't
should
it-
would you
not-
like to make that in the form of a motion?
Everybody for a motion, yeah. I'll move that what should the motion say? Because I move that we continue forward towards
Pursuing it, yeah.
studying and possibly implementing a local housing trust fund. Is that too vague?
I can work
Okay.
with that.
Yep.
And the funding amounts and levels will be figured out later.
It's a slippery slope.
I'll second that.
Okay,
So anytime I get little housing things, I send them to Buffy and we need to look at housing somewhat differently.
I agree.
I drive around, not so much here in Winona, but I drive around the metro area and the size of houses that are crammed into small lots is just, I can't imagine the cost and then you're living right on top of each other. Our housing we've gotten way too big on housing. If people really want to, be more quote environmental or something, we have to look at smaller houses. We have to look at driving less, flying less, eating less. I mean, if you really want to be environmental and such, we can't keep building these big McMansions all over the place.
Yep.
And options. So the last one I thought was pretty unique. It was kind of some round pre-model and you set them on a slab. That looked like a pretty cool house.
The Winona Daily News had an article earlier this week about aging in place. I'm sure this is probably being discussed in the housing study about this in 13 years, will for the first time in American history have more people over the age of 65 than under 18.
Yep.
And the need for to think beyond single family individual dwellings to look at, yes, absolutely smaller, more compact mother-in-law apartments, et cetera. If you want to keep people, allow them to age at home versus going to homes.
Right.
That is a huge issue coming down the pike with the baby boomers just beginning to retire. So yes, to all that. And I hear what you're saying about thinking about Winona State. With my work with refugees, I've had lots of conversations looking at empty places at Winona State, at St. Mary's. And it's crazy how many barriers are in the way to taking advantage of.
Shouldn't be because we paid for them.
St. Mary's is a different story.
St.
but
Mary's would be
yeah,
different,
You're
yes.
right. No, I hear you on all those things. But this is just a motion to continue to supporting the idea of creating a group and implementing it later.
so what I've written down as a potential here is to continue to pursue a housing trust fund for use in the Semshire jurisdiction starting in 2024.
Inside Winona County.
Yeah, inside Winona County. And I think I am interested. I don't think I wasn't going to make it part of this motion, but I mean, I'm interested in the partnerships with the city or
Absolutely.
potentially with Habitat for individual organizations, but that this is really to get ready with whatever the paperwork and the ordinance and that
Yes.
those
It's
requirements.
Commissioner Vagley's motion. So are you okay with
Yes.
that?
Is that
You
okay?
need to be
Friendly
wordsmithing
amendment,
it.
yes. Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Would you
You're
like
mani-
would you
you're-
want to give it a try?
You're manipulating it.
No, I accept that amendment
Okay.
to pursue partnerships with the city and.
I wasn't going to
Habitat.
make that part of the motion, but I mean,
Well, let's just make it part of the motion then.
is that okay?
that-
Commissioner
that-
Olson seconded it, so.
That slows it way down. If
Well,
you,
it's just pursuing, it's beginning to talk. It takes
It's
a long.
not for implementation
Right.
in 2024. It's to start those conversations to see if there's
You can have
interest,
two
is how I
tracks.
understood
again, it
it.
slows. it.
And it takes a
Okay,
long time.
Slower
to-
is better than.
it takes
you
a
won't
long-
Spend my money so fast. Slower is better.
Takes a long time to set up meetings.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
if you put that in
Oh,
there,
right.
it tends to slow it
Well, it's
way
like
down.
Ms. Sonneman said, it's 2 tracks. Yep.
Further discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries.
Glad you made it today.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah,
Can you get
thank
home
you.
now?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Buck.
All right.
Okay, so Commissioner Ward, you wanted to make a comment.
No, I already did with the veterans.
That was it?
Yes,
Okay,
that was
Commissioner
important.
Bagley had a couple comments?
Following up on what Commissioner Ward said, I want to wish all veterans a happy Veterans Day. Happened last Saturday. I want to thank Mr. Sansala, who came and spoke to a whole bunch of the sophomore class on part of the Winona Senior High School's Veteran Day program. So thank you to all veterans here in the county and online and in terms of your service and sacrifice. The second thing I wanted to talk about were the December county board meetings. The second meeting, and I believe past precedent, you guys flip-flop. The first meeting is a night meeting and the second meeting is a day meeting. Is that historically what you've been
The
doing?
reasons for that, isn't there? Because of a taxation.
The truth and tax,
Public hearing.
for the truth and taxation, I think, hearing. But the second meeting would fall on Tuesday, the 26th, which is the day after Christmas in the county. I believe that's a federal holiday. So could we, I guess we can't decide now. We put it on the next agenda. Could we look at,
The day after Christmas is not a holiday for us.
oh, it's not?
It's Canadian Boxing Day.
Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
I'm sorry, that's right. You're right. It's Monday. You're right. Christmas Day is a Monday. So I'm okay, but I have a small preference in terms of holiday travels. I could come back, but
It's all weather dependent, yeah.
right,
Or you could participate from a bus,
I suppose.
as happens.
You're right.
Well,
I'm sorry.
so the,
Christmas
the,
is Monday.
last
You're
year-
right.
the 12th meeting is at 6 o'clock.
Yes,
The 12th is a 6 o'clock meeting.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
I have to change that.
And then the 26th is a morning meeting,
9 a.m.
9
Correct.
a.m. Okay. Well, and that's why the committee of the board is at 11. All right.
Could we put it on the agenda to discuss? Or if people want to keep it at that day, then we can keep it on that day, but I'll be out of
Can,
town
well,
with
can we
family
move it? Can you move it to another? It
later that week, maybe.
We can.
okay.
Thursday that week is, I think, the 28th. I'm not sure if that's,
Yeah, and we probably should wait to see if
Yes, of
Commissioner
course.
Elsing's.
Okay.
so maybe put it on the next agenda for, is that okay?
For discussion?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I support that. Having the discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
That's your two items?
Yep, thank you.
Administrator Holte, you had an announcement?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to share with the board that Winona County will be hosting the MICA Annual Forum meeting February 1st, 2024. More information will come out on that, but it will be in Winona. So
I think they said at
mark
the
your
board,
calendars.
I think they said at the board meeting, they're going to do it at Riverport. I think that's what they
That's where
said.
we're trying to get coordinated, but it's not official yet.
That is my
okay,
birthday.
you said February 20,
First,
First.
February 1st,
oh, February 1.
February
Yes.
1st,
Oh, February 1 of 2024.
2024. Mhm.
Okay, all right, Micah.
And then I
Alright.
wanted to share with the board that the January meetings, and then the calendar for 2024 will be on the next board meeting. So you'll have the calendar for 2024.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Then we adjourn the regular meeting and
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Olson's moved, Commissioner Bagley seconded adjournment of this meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Can we have a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this gonna be long or short?
Meeting of the Committee of the Board of Winona County Commission. So we have one item on our agenda, which is to discuss the potential participation in regionalization of the 911 dispatch. So for background, when Commissioner Ward and I were at the AMC district meeting over in Rochester, Greg Wright, who is a Olmsted County Commissioner, gave a presentation in which he asked other counties to participate in this conversation about regionalization of the dispatch. And I brought this forward because if there's going to be a conversation, I wanted Winona County to at least be a participant, but knowing that we'd made a substantial investment in our dispatch. And so it isn't a thing that I'm going to advocate that we abandon having our own dispatch. Since I started talking about this at the last meeting and Commissioner Ward agreed to go ahead and put it on the committee of the board, I did have a meeting with Jennifer Lavala, who is she runs our current dispatch. And she had reached out to the dispatch in Olmsted County and they were not aware of this effort. So the request was perhaps a little premature. What I would ask for, 'cause she talked to me a lot about what the duties are of dispatch.
Mhm.
And then that they still are responsible for managing the doors in the jail, making that an important component of the jail. And then she talked about how much regionalization is already in place with software and hardware with our dispatch and other dispatch organizations across the region. So I would like us to go ahead and participate, but I would also like a presentation from Ms. Lavala so that she can share some of that information with the full board about what their duties are and in what ways they really do collaborate across the region now. And she had talked about the monetary savings of all of that going together to purchase the software and stuff.
And we do that through the Emergency Communications Board, yes.
Yeah, so that would be, that would be my request.
Just Commissioner Ward would probably remember, maybe Mr. Bagley, but we had this discussion how many years ago?
Well, you're right. Probably almost 20 years ago, we had discussions of regional jails. There was a lot of regional discussion. I think it was emphasized when the state patrol went from, I think they had about 9 dispatch down to 2. One of the things that I think is driving this right now is the dispatchers, and rightfully so, want to move up in it's a pay scale, it's a grid, it's certification, it's benefits and everything. And there's not enough people to hire to go into dispatch. So again, one of the discussions we had at the regional 9 counties at the Emergency Communications Board, we've had casual conversations, and there are sheriffs that are represented there. There's county commissioners. There's some of the emergency staff. Is that take Winona County, where's the career path for a dispatcher? If you regionalize and if you create a more for lack of word, professionalism to the job, there's career paths to be supervisors and move up. But when you isolate to a single county, and we're fortunate, we're one of the the bigger small counties, but you look at your Houstons and your Fillmores and the smaller counties, and going further west, small counties too, is if you're a dispatcher, you're a dispatcher. Is there a career path to move up? Probably not. And again, if we're going to ask these people to get more credentials and into a higher level within a union structure and everything, that is one phase of dispatching that I don't think gets enough thought, and maybe it's preliminary to where we take this. And then the equipment is getting more and more expensive. Yes, we share a lot. Software everything keeps going up. But yes, we have had these discussions, but they have never materialized into anything. Although Steele now they're separated by the county. They do joint. Let me stop and think. There is one joint in our
It's
local.
Rice Steel.
And that Ms. Lavala is on.
Okay, so Steele and
Central.
Excuse me. Yep,
Steele and Rice share?
that is correct. They're a consolidated PSAP.
Okay, I'm hearing voices. So they already share and have found it to work out quite well. And I think Greg Wright from Olmsted County, I think they're looking at some major investments, and they're just wondering, is there a way to, spread the investments out to cover larger areas? There always needs to be backup, things. And now with cell phone and the new technology, they can track you and they can find you, and you don't need to know where the old Johnson farm is, because people don't use those as that's generational. I live on the old Spearbeck farm. Spearbecks haven't lived there for 75 years, but I mean, that's a local thing. But yes, we have, but they never materialized. So yeah, I think a presentation would be beneficial. And how can we continue to, share services, software, all these systems that are required and stuff. And just like the 9 o'clock detective shows will track you right down to the local 10 feet, right, Ron? It's not like all on the television shows, but the yeah, the public has a perception that we can do all these things, you know, some of this stuff, and it's not reality. So.
And I would be okay. We have a busy schedule for now to the end of the year
Yeah,
because of
in
the setting.
2024.
So I'm thinking next year.
Mhm.
If there's agreement to kind of have a presentation
Yeah.
from Ms. Lavala. She also invited, I am going to sign up to sit in on part of a shift so that you can understand what it's like for them. And so I would just extend that invitation. You could reach out to Ms. Lavala if you wanted to spend some time with the dispatchers and see the magnificent work that they do. So
The new stuff. I've seen many years saw the old stuff, but yeah. they
There
got more
was
new.
no room in the old, in the old room for.
Oh, you
people
sat in the
yeah.
dark. You sat in the dark.
In the closet.
Ms. Lavala, is there anything else you'd like to share right now at this meeting?
No, I think you've covered the topics that I feel are important for Winona County. I would just like to make sure that the county board is thinking about what your vision is if you are really considering the idea of regionalization or consolidation of PSAPs. What is your idea and how does that look for Winona County? Is it us moving somewhere else? Is it us accommodating other agencies to be in with us? It just helps me to better understand what I should prepare for when it comes to this presentation. I will likely utilize members from the Department of Public Safety Emergency Communication Networks to assist in building this presentation for you guys. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or things that you would like to see presented on specifically, please let me know and I can make sure to cater that presentation to what you feel is important to understand as a county board. And I want to piggyback that you are all invited to sit in with us in dispatch. I'll gladly sit down at a console with you. You can plug in, hear what the phone calls are, see what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis, just to help you to better understand what it is we do in there and guide your decision-making when it comes to 911 in Winona County. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Olson and then Commissioner Vagley.
Jennifer, not to reinvent the wheel, but I think a lot of the public would be, I work in a jail in Houston, so I see enough of it, but general public might want to see what a typical call looks like. The short video presentation would go a long way, I think, if it doesn't already exist.
I can work to accommodate that.
But you probably have to run it by the attorney so we don't get into any public data information privileged, right?
I would,
Be some security.
Yeah.
or to redact, or just be careful about
Yeah.
any private information. I would love to do that at some point, to sit in for a while. I've been in a number of different ride-alongs or follow whatever, different staff at different times. I'd be interested in any county function. No, Ms. Lavala, that'd be fantastic if I could join you guys sometime. And just speaking for myself only, not for anybody else, I believe strongly that it's very important that we have a dispatch center here in Winona County. We are of significant size that I think it's very important that we keep. And matter of fact, you mentioned about a vision, again, just speaking for myself, and this is a bit of a preview to a conversation if the city and county can ever find a time to meet to talk about public safety, is to entertain the general idea of maybe working with agencies like Hiawatha Valley Mental Health and the crisis response team, et cetera, to partner with groups like that. And maybe that's not possible and maybe that's not wise to do that, but I would love to find ways to work with already existing partners who do things like crisis response and to ways. I ran this by one or two other folks and I didn't think I haven't been told it's crazy yet, and it's also not a new idea. It's also not a new idea, et cetera, but that's something to consider later on, Jennifer. But I think, just speaking for myself, I think it's important for the staff to know that, at least, that I think at some point the staff needs to know that we're not talking about moving them or to Rochester or whatever else. Is that this is a discussion about regionalization where when possible, if it's software or if it's backup or if it's whatever programs, but there will be a dispatch center here.
It's all on the table. I mean,
All right.
again, moving forward, yes, we've made a huge commitment
Right.
in dollars and it pushes the buttons for the jail,
Right.
but functions and features may change,
Right.
have to change to go with the
Okay, I'll
flow.
speak for myself then. In
That's
terms of, I think
And then I think my 911 calls still go to Wisconsin in my neighborhood. So I mean, you talk about regionalization.
Oh, and it's the opposite end of the spectrum is like with crisis response teams. Sometimes it goes to Itasca, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes to La Crosse. Then it gets forwarded to Itasca. Then it gets forwarded to.
Yeah.
That's just too much. That's too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Well, with technology though, it
In theory,
can,
Yeah.
yeah, it can
I
happen.
have a fear that our calls will start going to India pretty soon, or if the Philippines.
Get chip right here and we'll track you. Okay, so at some point in time, we'll have a presentation.
Yep.
Yes, yes, I appreciate, that would be appreciated. Absolutely.
That's it.
All right, we're
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Jennifer, for joining
Yep.
us.
Is that a
Thank
motion?
you.
Is that a commotion,
Oh,
Commissioner?
yeah.
Olson?
Thank you.
And the motion to.
Okay,
adjourn.
Commissioner Olson moves, Bagley seconds adjournment of this committee of the board meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If anyone's opposed, say nay. We are adjourned.